My name is Calhoun. I'm a recovering environmental law attorney from Louisiana. My son Billy was diagnosed with McCune-Albright syndrome almost 5 years ago in October 2006. I stepped away from law and conquering McCune-Albright became my new profession. I started the process really scared. After some time, I became sort of a good, quick, effective communicator with medical professionals, and now I'm a whip-ass patient advocate. October 2006, he was limping on a Monday morning. He'd been playing rough on Sunday with 4 boys, and then as he walked into school, I noticed he had sort of a limp. I took him in to the pediatrician. So we go to do x-rays, and Billy's so sweet and cute, and the nurses are all smiling, and la la la, and all that sort of thing. And so we do the x-rays of the hips, and then you can just sort of like, that's when you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, you can just see their faces. They're like, his bones are covered in lesions, we don't know what this is. You know, the pediatrician's going to call you. I mean, I don't know if you've had this experience, but you're sitting, you know, in this waiting room, and there's a phone, like the phone that's like sort of to the side, and then the nurse comes out and she was like, that phone will ring, and you know, your pediatrician will be on the other line. And so, you know, of course I was like, made my husband take that call. And then he didn't ask any of the questions that I wanted, but you know, So, you know, he's like, I've got you an appointment with a pediatric orthopedist in New Orleans tomorrow. You know, we don't know what it is. It could be cancer. When someone says lesions on the bone, it could be cancer. So, you know, I get on the phone and I call my friends and like, get on Google now. I want you to find everything you can. Here's all I know. You know, start now. You know, my husband's like, stop. And I'm like, no. I'm like calling everybody I know. I'm like, I need to know now. So we do all that, you know, my friends are tracking stuff down, and so that's Monday. So Tuesday we go see a very respected orthopedist in New Orleans, and I mean, my first concern honestly was I didn't want them to think that I had done it, that we had hurt him, because, you know, his bones looked so hurt, and, you know, so, I mean, my first question is it clear to you that this child has not been abused? And he was like, you couldn't do this to a person. You can't make these bones happen. So I was like, all right. And then he said, we're going to x-ray every bone in his body. So we take him over to radiology, and they x-ray like every bone in his body. It took over an hour, and I'm just like sobbing the whole time. Like, and I can tell which areas are bad, because say they do an x-ray of your arm, and they look at it, and then, you know, they don't do another one. But if there's, you know, fibrous dysplasia, then they would sort of drill down. So every time they would drill down to more, you know, specific x-ray, I was just like, oh my God. So, you know, that doctor sort of goes through the x-rays with us, and he was like, and he had, I guess, his resident, his training doc, and he was like, okay, so this is fibrous dysplasia. Training doctor, what do we do for fibrous dysplasia? And the training doctor was like, white face, looked like he was about to throw up. I don't know. And I was like, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? So I'm calling my friends, and a friend of mine had nannied for this girl who was engaged to a guy who was in med school for orthopedics. So she calls this, you know, I guess my friend calls her friend, who then calls her fiance, and says, here's the deal. My friend's kid, you know, da-da-da. And she went and saw Dr. So-and-so in New Orleans this morning. What do you think? And he was like, no way, you know, none of the nurses really like that doctor. That wouldn't put their kid on his table. She needs to take the kid to this doctor. So on Wednesday, I drive back to New Orleans, you know, looking all ratty and worn out, and we use Children's Hospital in New Orleans, which is who we currently use. So we go in, and we picked up the x-rays on the way from the other place. And, and he goes through them, and then I was like, now what about these cafe au laits? Like, I sort of feel like there's got to be some connection between these cafe au laits and this bone disease. It just has to. And as soon as I pulled up Billy's shirt to show him the cafe au laits, he was like, we just studied McCune-Albright last week in a small group. Like this, we were doing rare bone diseases, syndromes, and this is one of the ones that we just studied. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And he was like, I agree, you're gonna need to do, surgery and blah, blah. And I was like, I want you to be his doctor. And all the residents are like, what? Because he's like this young guy. I mean, now has tons of gray hair. But then, he was like this young guy, and this other guy is like super, fancy and well respected. And I was like, no, the fact that you were just studying this disease and just the way he interacted with us. I was like, you're the guy. Like, I know you've never treated anybody with this disease, but you're our guy. participate in all of the email chats, Yahoo, Google. I actually have like Google alerts set up on my computer, so if I see a Google alert come up on McKean-Albright syndrome or fibrous dysplasia, which is part of the syndrome, I'll go, I'll check out the link. And I actually have sort of a neat story. Because I blog, I like all that stuff too. So I have the Google alert set up for McKean-Albright, and I click on it, and it's somebody in Kansas, her blog, and she was like, my nephew was just diagnosed with this weird condition called McKean-Albright syndrome. And she's like, and they're gonna, he's got this fibrous dysplasia bone disease in his head, and the doctors are saying they're gonna use radiation. And I was like, oh my God, you can't do that. I'm like, I've got to find these people, because that is bad advice. I mean, it's in the textbooks, but you cannot radiate fibrous dysplasia, you'll turn it into cancer. So I was like, and I don't know this person. So, I leave a comment on the blog, and I was like, really, you've got to email me. I'm serious. I'm scared. I don't want this kid to get hurt. So, I'm sure she was like, okay, crazy town. So, no reply, and then I'm like, no, seriously, this is a big deal. You need to tell your cousin or whoever it was to call Mike Collins at NIH, like today. They cannot radiate that kid's skull. So I think she maybe she Googled around and found that I was right, and I was giving her, good medical advice. So got them all connected, and it ended up connecting with the parents who are in California, and they were all freaked out and scared, so I ended up emailing with that family, and then emailing with the doctor who's my friend at NIH, and I was like, this family's going to contact you, here's the story, they're going to do radiation, I think the kid has a growth hormone excess, and all this. So the kid from California ends up at the end of the NIH study. He's now getting awesome care. He wasn't hurt. So, it's sort of like, yay, blogs. So, and I'm not the only person who will do that. I think there's just a group of people who, I don't want a kid to get hurt because the information is not available. And if I can make it available, then I'll do anything I can to do that. So I'm going to close with one of my favorite quotes. It's William Apollinaire, and this sort of inspires me, and it's just my favorite. Come to the edge of the cliff, she said. We're afraid, they said. Come to the edge of the cliff, she said. We're afraid, they said. Come to the edge of the cliff, she said. They came. She pushed. They flew. And what that means to me is just when you partner with caregivers like me, and I'm not all that unique at all, the rare disease community is full of we call ourselves crazy mamas. I met bunches of them at NIH just a few weeks ago. But when you partner with us, we all fly, and we're all over the place. You just have to find us online, doctors' offices, conferences, hospitals, and we're busy. We're trying to keep our kids in one piece, but just know just seriously from the bottom of my heart, the work that you do, I appreciate every little bit. Just the smallest thing makes a huge difference to a mom like me. So thank you.